Hello and welcome to ACTV 20's Health Matters. I'm Dr. Erich Parks, and I'm real happy to bring a new guest today that has a very new approach, but a new attitude towards helping people help themselves. So I want to introduce Jeff Adorador. He's a marriage family therapist and very exciting man. I want to have you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you ended up becoming a therapist, and maybe a little bit introduction to what's different about your approach.
Sure, absolutely. So Jeff Adorador, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. As of 2008, I started out with a lot of work in the office, in the confines of the traditional modalities of therapy after my studies and so on. And I found that not only am I compelled to take my practice out in nature, because that's a lot of my past studies is outdoor leadership, backpacking expeditions, but I also found that there's a certain clientele that would respond better to an experiential approach of therapy. Just getting outside, combining light exercise, movement, and we all know how enriching nature is, so that does a lot of the heavy lifting for me.
Have you had any experience in your own life where being outside has really, turned light bulbs on for you and given you insight, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. In my younger 20s and such, I was really compelled to study a lot of native cultures, Native American cultures. I was intrigued by some of the simplicity of living and also some of the esoteric qualities of Native Americans and such. So I did some vision quests. A lot of these concepts that are being incorporated into experiential behavior mod programming for youth at risk and such, and people use this kind of fasting and vision quest approach for personal enrichment. So I did a lot of my own personal work, simply going out in nature for extended periods of time, sitting for a while, writing, meditating, getting quiet, and I found that very enlightening in many ways, helped me answer essential questions to my own personal development and get clear on some answers for myself.
I'm sure a lot of people can identify with that approach. I know that's not a new approach. I mean, getting out in nature helps ground us, gets us back to where our essence is, and from there you make better decisions. I mean, that's
true.
That's a lot of people know that, but that approach combined with counseling is real interesting. I'd never heard of that before I'd met you, and so can you tell us a little bit about where that started?
Sure, absolutely.
And how that's progressing.
Well, also in my 20s, I was involved in a lot of behavior mod programs. I was not involved. I was in a leadership role, so I was leading these youth at risk out, and nature would kind of beat these kids up a little bit with natural consequences. They'd be backpacking out in the desert, and you can't rebel against nature. So I found myself facilitating this kind of stuff. And I really loved it. I loved the elements. I loved working with youth. And traditionally, this model of wilderness therapy has been mostly targeted on that demographic. Youth programming, behavior modification programming, adjudicated youth, that kind of thing. But I said, why limit it to that? I mean, so many people love the natural world. We recreate and we find mind, body kind of health in that realm. So why not offer some opportunity also to have psychotherapy for adults in a larger demographic? How do I make that practical? That was the next step.
Yeah. You were breaking new ground there, I'm presuming. I really hadn't heard of this.
Well, this is
model.
A growing trend.
It is.
If you Google search walk and talk therapy, you will see practitioners out there. I'd like to promote an industry standard for therapists that want to do this kind of thing. I think that's the responsible thing. If you're a therapist, you want to take on this kind of service, to have some background in outdoor leadership, have some fundamental certifications in first aid. That could absolutely affect this kind of movement. So I have all that behind me. I'm a wilderness first responder. I instruct to search and rescue survival skills. I've led lots of expeditions. I have a private company.
It certainly puts the mind at ease if you're going out.
I think so, absolutely. I don't see it any other way, that if I'm going to do this kind of thing, I should do this responsibly.
Right. Well, I think that, from what I know about programs like Outward Bound. These are, usually troubled youths who are having a hard time, getting along or, finding their way. And those programs have been very successful for a lot of kids. I know some personally who've been through that program. So I get it. I can see a parallel between taking something in that realm, but it does have the stigma, if you're going to get outside, what did you do wrong or what's wrong with you? But I think that there's, if we're talking about self-improvement, grounding, those kind of things, what sort of people contact you for, and you would say, I think it would be a good idea for us to get out?
Yeah, it's been interesting, this journey serving various populations with specifically walk and talk therapy. I've found that there's a wide demographic of people. And of course you have the common teenagers, parent guardians contact me about their teenagers who are needing some help and don't want to be in a clinical environment. That's right. Baseline. But I also have attorneys, doctors, everyday adults, male or female, that just gravitate towards this type of orientation. They want to go for a walk. They don't want to be in stuffy confines. They process better shoulder to shoulder with this light movement. They're inspired by the places we hike, with regard to their physical abilities. That varies, and I always take that into consideration. But a wide variety of people. I
could see, and from a perspective of somebody who has maybe not had a lot of experience with counseling, going into an office where you are now the subject, and it's a little intimidating, but I think you remove a lot of those barriers when you can get outside and maybe walk shoulder to shoulder and discuss.
It can be intimidating for some, you're right, and I think that's the characteristic of some. Some people like that containment of a private room, and that works perfect. But many would rather do a walk and talk therapy session, or some of the other programs that I offer that are extended days, 3 days, 2 nights backpacking up in the Sierras. Wow. I offer 2 programs. One is called Relationship Quest, where couples are working on some dynamics of communication and expedition together for a safe little journey. Also Solo Quest, which are for individuals that are wanting to go through a process that help gain clarity in their life. They maybe have just gone through an illness, a divorce, some moment in their life, some season of their life where they need to get clear. So that's the focus of this experience. I ask them good questions. I ask them to be in a safe, alone place that I'm at a distance monitoring, and they will be secluded. I mean, this stuff is ancient, like you've already mentioned. I mean, we've been doing this in various cultures for millennia. Right.
But to actually be there to guide that process. I mean, we don't have the culture behind us that says you're going to be out there looking at, this is what you can expect, and we'll come back and get you in 3 days. I think that our culture's kind of set up that, one-on-one seems to be a good, an accepted way of proceeding. But I'm intrigued. Can you tell me about some of the places that you go? You said you had some real interesting hikes.
Sure. Well, for the longer expeditions, I will just utilize our national forest. The Sierras are gorgeous and beautiful. And so I find places that are fairly easy to access, for beginner, intermediate, backpackers. There's so many secluded lakes and beautiful places that inspire. Locally, in Placer County, what I'm doing is utilizing the trails along the river most often. I'll sometimes, be in the confluence area. I'll sometimes be down by Lake Folsom. Depends on the ability and the demographic. But 2-hour sessions are typically how I structure my sessions of walk and talk. And I provide incentives if you purchase more sessions up front, that kind of thing.
It's fascinating to me because, being in my mid-60s now, I know, looking back, about every decade, you get to a point where there's prospective or respective, reflective, to say, what have I done? What am I going to do? And it seems like having somebody to, kind of walk you through this. I mean, I depended on maybe spouses or friends in the past to, knock ideas from, but it doesn't seem like that really ever produced a whole lot for me. I think if the audience is looking at that, and you can look back at your own life and say, yeah, this should be done about every 10 years. Get out, do an adventure or something out of your comfort zone, so you have to look inside a little bit. Do you find anybody that's actually inquired about that? I mean, I would if I were calling you.
I think what you're talking about is more of like these moments where you have to do some serious reflection on your life, and that's what something like Solo Quest would be great for. Or if you're having trouble in your relationship quest. I think that we all need self-care.
Absolutely.
And if you are at this kind of stagnant place in your life, then oftentimes it would be wise to hire some kind of professional that's educated and experienced, and of course you resonate with. That's a huge personality thing, to help guide you. In essence, what I like to think of it as, I'm holding up the mirror for people.
Right.
I'm not this guru with all the answers. I'm here to levitate and tell you what to do with your life. But what is most powerful, I consistently see, is me holding presence for people, holding space for people. I can be there listening about the secrets and the shadows of their life.
Right.
We put up this facade about who we are, and so if they trust me, they will tell me about these aspects of their life, and they do their own therapy essentially for themselves, by being honest with themselves, by being awake and alert of the areas of growth in their life. Now, I can also help keep them accountable by asking them good questions. How are you working with that? How are you doing with that? And if it's honest exchange, they're being honest with themselves, then you see this maturation.
Right.
And I think that's rich. I love my profession. I love that I can be there at the center helping somebody else's growth and healing.
I can see so much potential in this, and so what I'd like for you to do, if you can, I know without mentioning names, just talk about a couple of the different clients that you've had that have gone through this, and what was their experience with the outcomes, and where
Absolutely.
are they at now?
So I've served hundreds, if not over 1,000 people, in various modalities, so running crisis center, working in the ER, schools, and so on. Specifically, walk and talk therapy stories. Some that pop out to mind. There was one client who was working with anxiety. He grew up in an affluent family. I think there was a lot of pressure on him to be a certain way, and he's a kind of sensitive soul, very empathic kind of human being, and the pressures of the world, the pressures of his family, he had this anxiety, and it was tension in his body to the point where he would have anxiety attacks, trouble breathing, and so on and so forth. So getting him moving was excellent, just shoulder to shoulder. And after building rapport, after a number of sessions, I went in a little bit deeper with some experiential kind of opportunities. One thing that came to mind, I had him physically hiking up a difficult hill, while reciting out loud who he was, some of his areas of growth, and these affirmations.
Right.
And so physically, he's having the same symptomologies of a panic attack, the tightness of chest, the difficulty breathing, but he's working through it. And there's this kind of like neural programming that's going on while I'd stop him and say, no, try again, just kind of a take, try again, say with more confidence, more clarity. And those kind of experiential moments are difficult to replicate in an office setting.
Oh my gosh.
That's
brilliant. I mean, what a way of putting, like you said, the symptoms of anxiety into a physical adventure. I mean, that's wonderful.
He resonated with that. He gave me good feedback on that, and I could just see it in his posture and in his language, how that was influencing his mindset. Another story. Youth at risk, kind of kiddo, dealing with a lot of self-esteem issues. And he had, in particular, a lot of negative thoughts. We all have this, and to some degree, but he especially had just a lot of just stinking thinking, negative thoughts. And so, these ideas often come to me really quick on the trail and inspired by my environment. There's a beautiful stream on the side of the trail that was intersecting our trail. And I said, let's stop. And I want you to get down to the water, and I demonstrated, I just want you to take this water, and I just want you to wash your face. And while you're washing your face, I want you to visualize as though you're washing these thoughts clean from yourself. And I had him do it, and I had enough rapport that he didn't think I'm just some wacko therapist or something coming up with this stuff. And he genuinely resonated with that idea. And I think like what you were talking about earlier, we don't have these kind of opportunities, these little simple rituals that really speak to a deep subconscious self.
Right.
You know, we have a lot of facade and distractions, and some of those are wonderful distractions, but we need to counterbalance with these deep, rich soul development modalities.
I think everybody can resonate with experiences in their life where they've either been in nature, or they've been in a stream or a hot springs or something like that that's really helped. Oh yeah, but all these things really help to bring people to a sense of peace. And when you, like you were saying, some of these kids and a lot of adults with, you know, anxiety or worries, you know, that people have all kinds of hang-ups, but it's come back to, you know, how do we get these people to be calm long enough to work out some of these things. So I'm just thinking of a wonderful experience that I had once where I was up hiking. I was exhausted. There were mosquitoes. It was really just unpleasant surroundings, but I was slogging through because I had to get back to the camp. And all of a sudden I stepped in what felt like a puddle, but it was a spring coming up out of the ground. And it so happened that I was low on water, so I said, well, it's coming out of the ground. Let's try this. And so I took some drinks of it. Like you said, I washed my face with it, and it was just like my whole world just turned around. It was just, and then I walked back down. You know, I got rid of the mosquitoes in my mind. But it was one of those experiences. Now, had you been with me, perhaps we would have gotten some other breakthroughs, which I think would have been really fun. But that's, and everybody, if you can recognize that, I think that's what Jeff's work is about, is bringing people to that point where, you know, we shed some of the shells that keep us from making forward progress, right?
Absolutely. You know, and again, the natural world influences us if we're listening. I remember one last story. Older woman who was very successful by all modern standards, and she was very tough, thick-skinned. Her defenses were elusive and yet she tough to penetrate. So she was just kind of facade. I'm not getting any. She's making me work really hard to get to know her. And after about an hour or 45 minutes, it's like nature will just kind of strip you down to your core essence.
Right.
You know, there was a beautiful view of the river. The trail opened up, you know, and she just stopped. And then she just, you know, said it. She talked about the secrets of her life, you know, the affair, the things that are human, right. You know, that we all have this stuff that we're working through, you know, and I can just hold space for them to be honest and for them to problem solve and to get real with themselves. Nature has that cleansing ability.
Well, I know a lot of people, and some close to me, who are actually afraid to go out in nature. I mean, to them, it's dangerous. There's cougars, there's bears, there's snakes, and all these things.
It's all out there to get you.
Yeah, and so how would you, if I were that person,
absolutely
say, well, you know what I think would be helpful is to get out and do some hiking. Boy, my defenses are it's dangerous. I would rather be in this. You know, is that necessary to get people?
Well, I think that's
that?
really true. You're absolutely right. People think about the apex predators and our own fragile nature, right? But I think we fixate on our fears, and a lot of it are false evidence appearing real. Fear. They're not. It's not very realistic that bears are going to hunt you down.
Right.
However, that's where I think being an experienced guide helps. Where I've had encounters with bears. I've been on the trail with cougars and rattlesnakes and I've lived to tell about it, right? And more accurately, I found that these animals are not out to get you. Most of the time, they're these peaceful but serious interactions, and they will turn 180 degrees and walk the other way. They want to live another day too. They're not out to get you. So I think that can provide peace of mind for people.
Yeah, I think you're right. If you said to me that we want to go out and it brings up all of my fears about that, but you say, well, look, I have experience. I'm a wilderness first responder. I know all these things. So, worst case scenario, I'll be there for you.
Absolutely.
And so that helps to ease people's fears, I think, a little bit too.
Be smart, be aware. Don't just bring your civil mentality, your domesticated mentality into the wilderness. Turn on some abilities to be alert.
Right.
Beyond your smartphone focus of mind. Broaden your focus and walk with awareness.
Yeah, I having had some experience again back in my 20s working with people who were shaman, who were really experienced in taking people through what might have otherwise been something dangerous. But that experience of heightening the awareness of your surroundings to the point where the superfluous stuff just goes away and you're really focusing on who you are, what you can do, your abilities. I think that's so smart. I think that's a great. Why doesn't everybody have this ability to get outside and help people with that? I think that's going to be really a coming thing. So you mentioned earlier that you wanted to make this more of a industry standard. How do you see that happening? I mean, is that something that?
Well, with my company, Earthwalker, the vision is enriching lives through exposure to the natural world, right? And so I'm combining these two different worlds of survival instruction with also therapy opportunities, a bit of world travel as well, some enrichment world travel. So I conduct a wilderness therapy training for mental health professionals. I just had the first last year.
Wow.
I have this great opportunity to train on somebody's land. A friend of mine, a colleague, about 100 acres, out towards Coloma. Beautiful land. And so I have this event for 2 days. The therapists can come out and learn a little bit essentials to guiding and some experiential modalities to put it into practice.
Well, I have to admit, from as much as I keep my ear to the ground, this was new to me, and I thought, this is fantastic. Why doesn't everybody know about this?
I'm grateful.
Well, and I think that this is, like you said, I think it's a coming paradigm that we struggle to find some kind of cultural center. We as a country, we don't have a lot of culture. I mean, individual communities may. It's
very integrated. It's very. I mean, it's very eclectic too. I mean, it's.
Right. But we all know or have had the experience of being out either camping, walking, hiking, just sitting by a lake. But how centering, how calming that can be, and I think that's gonna. I think that it has a lot of potential.
I hope it's the way of the future to involve more experiential modalities and the therapeutic use of wilderness because, we have to be aware, I believe, of our impact on the resources of the natural world. That's just smart, for generations to come. I look forward to there being more organic technologies that takes that kind of thing into consideration. So, this is my way of promoting that while also doing something I love. I love helping people. I love the natural world. So, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, now, you've mentioned the solo adventure, solo
quest.
Quest, thank you. And couples.
Relationship quest.
How about small groups of people? Have you ever worked with groups, taking them out?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And these kind of programs can be adapted to various small businesses and events. So
I think that would be helpful. And again, being part of many personal growth programs, this approach I think would be the next rung up on helping people, you know, like we were talking about earlier, removing those barriers and really talking about what's most important, what's
Seed
the essence.
planted. Let's continue to talk and dream up and plan.
Yeah. So do you have any stories, not names, but just stories of small groups, like you said, a business or a family or dynamics that...
Sure. So in my younger 20s and early 30s, I did a lot of youth programming, where, you know, behavior mod. I worked for Roseville Police Department's youth programming. I did a fair amount of guiding for my own company, Earthwalker. But now that I've been licensed, I'm evolving more into working with adult populations. So I've run a bunch of these solo quests and relationship quests. Healing hiking hot springs is an event that I've done in the past, where it's enrichment and, again, working with the elements, hot springs and yoga and such. I do world travel events as of the last couple of years, and I have 2 events in the spring of 2020 where going to Southeast Asia, Thailand for 1 week, then the next trip, since we're over there, my fiance and I, Bali Quest. So yoga, daily yoga, hot springs, massage. There's some optional adventures, whitewater rafting, surfing, some cultural immersion. We're visiting some temples. So I put these experiences together, so people aren't just taking a vacation, they're enriching their lives through these you know, and of course the common theme is nature and healing and health. So
Oh, that sounds fantastic. And then now you could get connected up with some travel groups and put those together.
I hope so. I mean, my life goal is to not only be of service, but to do what I love. So this is my working experiment.
I love it. I think that, you know, I'd be interested in something, you know, if you're going to another country, especially because, you know, it's not just a hedonist, you know, retreat. You're actually going, like you said, to self-enrich, but also there's a culture there that you have to put down some of your defenses in another culture to learn. So it would be a real good thing. So have you done one before where you're out of the country?
Yes.
You have?
Two events to Southeast Asia. And I'm particularly drawn to that region, but I'd love to explore other parts of the world as well. I very much love Indonesia and Bali. Bali in particular, I find their culture very, very generous and benevolent and just rich on a soul level. The style of Hindu culture and the history there is just fascinating to me, and people see it. But I think any place you go, you're taking yourself out of your comfort zone, and it's a very insightful and rich experience to travel. You know?
Oh yeah.
Change your perspective by changing your place.
Well, that's probably one of the reasons that I like to travel, is to get out to not only learn about other cultures, but also to take ourselves out of, you know, what we're comfortable with, and you know, see if I can't learn something that way. And it's a great way to travel rather than just be the tourist.
True.
So listen, if people want to get a hold of you, are there several different ways that they can connect with you?
Absolutely. You can find me on Psychology Today, searching Jeff Adorador, a licensed marriage and family therapist. If you're interested in some of these experiential wilderness therapy or world travel events, my website is earthwalkerllc.com. If you're specifically interested in walk and talk therapy, therapywalkandtalk.com. So I'd love to meet you. I'd love to be of service. I love what I do. Hopefully we can meet and I can help you out.
Yeah, it's evident you do love what you do, and I'm sure that you're helping a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't get that opportunity. So,
well, I'm just grateful that, you know, in my meeting with the community, put myself out there, that you've taken the opportunity to reach out and give me this opportunity to meet you, and that's what we are. We're a community. We're a village. And
that's right. Well, congratulations and good luck in your endeavors. I'm certain it will be successful.
Thanks,
and thank you for listening for ACTV 20's Health Matters. I'll see you next time.